came into the Penobscot building, downtown Detroit, where I had my offices, and she was in the Colonnade cafeteria, and I was down there with the law clerk eating lunch. And she walked over to the table and she said, "Hi, Connie, how are you?" And I said, "Terrible." And she said, "What's wrong?" And I told her about Barry's accident. And she said, "Why, Connie, I can come over to the house and heal him for you." I said, "You can?" I said, "Phyllis, he lost both legs above the knees." She said, "It doesn't matter. I can come heal him for you." I said, "Tell me, Phyllis, how do you plan to accomplish that?" She said, "I've been studying healing." I said, "Well, I'm sure that if you think you can come heal him, you must have been. But I still don't understand. How would you accomplish that?" She said, "With cosmic energies I receive from the universe." Well, I looked at Glenn Page. He looked at me. He was the young man. He's now been a highly respected member of the prosecutor's staff for many years. And we excused ourselves. Miraculously, we didn't break out laughing. And we got upstairs, and we both burst out laughing. And I laughed so hard I almost hyperventilated. And I said, if she comes over and puts those legs back on him, she will make a believer out of me. And I didn't think one more thing about it until she's introduced as the campaign manager. And I thought, boy, this is good. She's going to come finance this campaign with cosmic money she receives from the universe. Still didn't think anything more about it. And Phyllis got up and gave a talk, and she said, when you see Al, you are to visualize him on the councilman's chair. And through this act of visualization, you will gain the cooperation of the higher powers of the universe, who will work to bring his vision into manifestation. She said, I have been a student of the mind sciences for the last 20 years. Well, I had been acquainted with her for 14 of those 20 years. And I thought, I wonder if Phyllis is part of this. Mind science, visualization, those were things that Marilyn Ferguson discussed in the Aquarian Conspiracy. So when the party broke up, I went over to Phyllis and I said, Phyllis, I said, I heard you mention the mind sciences. She said, yes. I said, you know, years ago I read a book called Psycho-Cybernetics by Matthew Maltz. And I've been so interested in the mind sciences since then. Maybe you would like to go to dinner with me and you can tell me more about it. And she said, yes. Now, you have to watch us lawyers. We're really tricky. You can get a lot of information for the price of a meal. I had a gold mine that night. I took her to dinner. She was very careful about ordering the red zinger teas and the vegetarian entrees. And I said, now tell me about the mind sciences. I'm fascinated. She said, it's part of the New Age movement. I don't know if you've heard of it or not. I said, no, at least not by that name. Is it possibly known by another name? Any other name? She said, yes. It's called sometimes called the holistic movement, the networking movement, the new consciousness movement. She said there are other names. Those are some of the most important. And, she didn't mention Age of Aquarius. And at that point, I held up the Aquarian Gospel and I said, Phyllis, is this by any chance part of it? She said, why, yes, it certainly is. Now, so help me, I did not know they had a slogan that when the pupil is ready, the master will appear. And so I said to Phyllis, I said, what do you do in this movement? She said, we communicate with code words and signals. And I said, Phyllis, I've been studying on my own for a little while, the best I could without a good teacher like you. Remember, I didn't know that slogan then. I said, I think I may know some of the words. Can you help me? And she said, yes. And I said, holistic. She almost fell off her chair. Spaceship Earth, global village, interdependence, global, so on and so forth. And she told me a few more I should add to my repertoire. And then I said, well, communicating is fine and fun, but what are we communicating about? She said, we believe the mind operates on principles, just as one's body operates on principles. And if you want your mind to work effectively for you, you must know those principles. So, well, that's logical enough. Tell me, what are some of the principles? And she said, the most important principle of all is karma. And I had noticed this strong thread of mysticism running through it, both Eastern and Western. And I said, Phyllis, I said, could this possibly have anything to do with Eastern religions? She said, well, yes, Eastern religions are part of it, but we're much larger than the Eastern religions. And I did an inward gulp. I'm talking about 2/3 of the world's population, and we're bigger than that. And anyway, our food's delivered. And I said to Phyllis, I said, Phyllis, I said, I have to tell you, I've read the Aquarian Conspiracy. And when I said that, she frowned very deeply. And she said, Marilyn Ferguson is a friend of mine. We've appeared on many speakers' platforms together. She said, but you have to remember her limitations. She's only a reporter of the brain-mind movement. Add that as another name. She said, her book didn't really tell it the way it was. And I really thought she was probing, because Marilyn Ferguson said they would probe to see if there was any hint of opposition, because their ideas had been too easily misunderstood in the past. And she had also written that this time they were going to succeed because global communications had encircled the globe beyond any possibility of retreat, with fax machines and computer communication. And anyway, I thought Phyllis was trying to see if I was opposed to it. And I said to her, I said, Phyllis, I said, I read that book. It looked like a really good book to me. I said, tell me, what's wrong with it? She said, then she smiled and said, the movement is much, much larger than she reported it as being. And she was all smiles again. Marilyn Ferguson had understated the case, underreported the movement. And at that point I said to Phyllis, I said, Phyllis, I said, you're going to think I'm crazy. I said, but in my spare time since Barry's accident, I've become quite the Bible student. I am convinced beyond any reasonable doubt that this may very well be what was described in the Bible as the last day political, social movement that would bring the Antichrist on the scene. And I was really expecting her to say, you're crazy. She didn't. She still thought I wanted to come on board. She said, oh yes, she said, that's very perceptive of you. She said, I've been convinced of that for many years myself. And I had a Bible with this tape in my stack of books, and I opened it up, and I showed her Daniel 11:38 passage. He shall honor in his estate the God of forces, a God whom his fathers knew not. And I turned to a page in the Aquarian Gospel and said, one may enter fully into the spirit of the God of forces. And she said, you saw it, you saw it. She said, that's such an important point. Most students of esotericism fail to grasp it immediately. Well, if I'd wanted to, I probably could have taken over the Theosophical Society. And she said, also you must remember that in the New Age movement and at Unity, she was a biofeedback instructor at Detroit's Unity Temple. She said, we believe Jesus and the Christ are two separate entities. The Christ is an office, not a man. Well, I quoted scripture to her, who is a liar, but he that denies Jesus is the Christ. He's Antichrist that denies the Father and the Son. And suddenly She had a mystic crystal revelation. She told me too much.